Welcome back everyone, and thank you for being here today. I'm truly excited to have you with me because what we're about to explore is one of those stories that can completely change the way you look at everyday money. Most people never give a second thought to a dime. It's small, lightweight, and often considered the least interesting coin in our pockets. But today, we're talking about a Liberty One dime from 1990 with the D Mint mark, a coin that on the surface looks ordinary, familiar, and almost boring, yet under extremely rare circumstances has been valued as high as $923,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for a coin with a face value of just 10 cents. This is not a fantasy or a rumor, but a powerful example of how errors, minting mistakes, mint mark anomalies, condition, and collector demand can transform a simple coin into an extraordinary treasure. To fully understand why the 1990 D Liberty dime can reach such an incredible valuation, we need to take a deep journey into history, minting processes, human error, and the psychology of collectors. This is not just about one coin, but about how value is created, hidden, and sometimes discovered decades after a coin leaves the mint. It's also a reminder that even modern coins, the ones many people assume can never be valuable, still have the potential to shock the world. The dime struck in 1990 is officially part of the Roosevelt Dime series, which began in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt. However, many collectors and enthusiasts still use the term Liberty dime when discussing modern dimes, because the concept of liberty has always been central to U.S. coinage. Liberty is not just a word or a symbol, it is an idea woven into the identity of American money. Even when liberty is not explicitly named on the coin, the spirit of liberty remains present through the nation's values, history, and traditions. This connection is one reason why even modern dimes can carry deep symbolic and collectible significance. By 1990, the United States Mint was operating with advanced technology compared to earlier decades. Coins were produced at high speed using automated systems designed to minimize errors. The Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark, was one of the most productive facilities in the country. Millions upon millions of dimes were struck there in 1990, intended for everyday circulation. These coins were made of a copper core clad with outer layers of copper nickel, giving them their familiar silver-colored appearance. There was nothing special planned about these dimes. They were not commemoratives, not special issues, and not meant to be saved. They were made to be spent, and yet, it is precisely this massive scale of production that creates the possibility for rare and valuable errors. When millions of coins are produced, even a tiny fraction of mistakes can result in coins that are extraordinarily rare. Most errors are caught and destroyed by quality control, but a few inevitably slip through. When those errors are dramatic, visually striking, or historically unusual, they become objects of intense desire among collectors. One of the most important factors behind the extreme value of certain 1990 D dimes is the presence of major minting errors. Minting errors occur when something goes wrong during the production process, whether it involves the planchet, the dies, the striking process, or post-strike handling within the mint. Each type of error tells a different story, and some stories are far more valuable than others. Wrong planchet errors are among the most prized in modern coin collecting. A wrong planchet error happens when a coin is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination or composition. For a 1990 D dime, this could mean being struck on a planchet meant for a penny, a nickel, a quarter, or even a foreign coin. Even more astonishing is the possibility of a dime being struck on a leftover or experimental planchet. Although silver dimes were discontinued decades earlier, there have been rare cases where old planchets or experimental materials were accidentally used. A 1990 D dime struck on the wrong planchet would immediately stand out due to its incorrect weight, thickness, and sometimes even size. When authenticated, such a coin can be worth an extraordinary amount, especially if it is unique or nearly unique. Another category of error that can drive values into the hundreds of thousands is the off-metal error. Off-metal errors occur when a coin is struck on a planchet made of an incorrect metal composition. This can result in unusual coloration, different magnetic properties, or unexpected surface textures. In a modern minting environment like that of 1990, off-metal errors are extremely rare because of strict controls. That rarity is exactly what makes them so valuable. A confirmed off-metal 1990 D dime would be a major numismatic discovery. Off-center strikes are another type of error that can significantly increase a coin's value. An off-center strike happens when the planchet is not properly aligned with the dies during striking. The result is a coin where part of the design is missing, often leaving a blank area along one side. Minor off-center strikes are relatively common and usually worth only a modest premium. However, extreme off-center strikes that still show the full date and mint mark are far rarer. A 1990 dime with a dramatic off-center strike, especially one preserved in high condition, can command a substantial price. Double strikes add another layer of intrigue. A double-struck coin is created when a planchet is struck more than once, sometimes with a rotation or shift between strikes. This can result in overlapping images, doubled lettering, or distorted features that look almost artistic. The more dramatic and clear the double strike, the more desirable the coin becomes. For collectors, a bold double-struck 1990 dime is not just a coin, but a visual representation of a moment when the minting process went wrong in a spectacular way. Double die errors are even more fascinating and often more valuable. Unlike double strikes, double dies occur during the creation of the die itself. If the die receives multiple misaligned impressions during hubbing, every coin struck from that die will show the same doubling. True double die dimes from 1990 are extremely rare, especially those with strong, easily visible doubling. Doubling on the date, lettering, or Roosevelt's profile would immediately attract attention. When such a coin is discovered and authenticated, it can become one of the most sought-after examples of its kind. Die cracks, die breaks, and cuds also play a role in the valuation of rare dimes. A die crack appears as a raised line on the coin caused by a crack in the die. While small die cracks are common, large or dramatic ones are much rarer. A cut occurs when a piece of the die breaks off entirely, leaving a raised, blob-like area on the coin where the design is missing. Retained cuds, where the broken piece remains partially attached, are especially fascinating. These errors show that the die continued to be used despite significant damage, and collectors value them for their rarity and visual impact. Mint mark errors are particularly important for the 1990 dime. The D mint mark indicates that the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. Errors involving mint marks can include repunched mint marks, misplaced mint marks, weak or filled mint marks, or mint marks that appear unusually shaped. By 1990, mint marks were punched into the dies rather than the coins themselves, reducing the frequency of certain types of errors but not eliminating them entirely. A dramatic mint mark anomaly on a 1990 dime would add significant value, especially if it is clearly identifiable and authenticated. One of the most powerful factors behind the astonishing valuation of $923,000 is condition. Most 1990 dimes were heavily circulated. They passed through countless hands, spent years in pockets and cash registers, and accumulated scratches, wear, and damage. However, a very small number were preserved in near-perfect or flawless condition. These coins may have been pulled from circulation early, saved by collectors, or simply avoided heavy handling by chance. When a coin with a major error is also preserved in exceptional condition, its value increases exponentially. Professional grading plays a crucial role here. Grading services evaluate coins based on strict criteria, examining surface preservation, strike quality, luster, and overall eye appeal. A top-grade coin with a rare error is a dream scenario for collectors. Such coins are often unique or nearly unique, and their rarity is compounded by their condition. This is where values can approach or even exceed the $1 million mark. Collector demand is another key driver of extreme prices. Coin collecting is not just about rarity, it is also about desire. When elite collectors compete for the same rare coin, prices can escalate quickly. A unique 1990 dime with a spectacular error represents something that may never appear on the market again. Collectors understand this, and the fear of missing out can lead to intense bidding wars. At this level, the coin is not just a collectible but a trophy. The historical context of the 1990 dime also adds to its appeal. The year 1990 sits at the edge of a major transition in world history. My dears, if you've ever looked at a modern dime and thought there was no way it could be worth more than 10 cents, you're about to hear a story that may completely change how you see everyday money. Now we're exploring one of the most surprising and fascinating ideas in modern coin collecting: how a Liberty One dime from 2010 with a D mint mark, a coin most people would barely notice, can under extremely rare circumstances be valued as high as $875,000. That is an almost unbelievable difference from its tiny face value, and it all comes down to errors, mistakes, mint mark anomalies, and unique possibilities that can transform an ordinary modern coin into a legendary treasure. The 2010 dime is part of the Roosevelt dime series, which has been in circulation since 1946. Although many people casually refer to these coins as Liberty dimes because of what liberty represents in American coinage and the freedom symbolized by U.S. money, the design itself honors President Franklin D. Roosevelt. By 2010, this design had been around for decades, and millions of dimes were struck each year for everyday use. The Denver Mint, identified by the D Mint mark, played a major role in producing circulating coinage, including dimes intended to move quickly through the economy. These coins were not made to be rare, special, or valuable. They were made to buy coffee, pay tolls, and disappear into pockets and cash registers. Because of this, the idea that a 2010 D dime could be worth $875,000 sounds shocking. Modern coins are often dismissed as having no chance of becoming valuable, especially when compared to older silver coins or early American issues. However, the reality of numismatics is that rarity does not always come from age. Sometimes it comes from mistakes, and sometimes it comes from moments when something goes wrong in an otherwise highly controlled minting process. Modern mints are efficient and precise, but they are not perfect. When errors do occur, they can be dramatic, and because quality control is so strict, the number of error coins that escape into circulation can be incredibly small. To understand how a 2010 D dime could reach such an extraordinary valuation, it's important to understand how coins are made. The process begins with planchets, which are blank metal discs punched from sheets of metal. These planchets are then fed into presses, where they are struck with tremendous force by engraved dies that imprint the coin's design. Everything about this process is automated and fast. Thousands of coins can be struck in a matter of minutes. When something goes wrong at any stage, the result can be a coin that looks very different from what it should. One of the most important categories of errors that can lead to massive value is the wrong planchet error. A 2010 dime is supposed to be struck on a copper core planchet clad with a nickel alloy. If a dime is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, the results can be extraordinary. Imagine a dime struck on a planchet meant for a penny, a nickel, or even a quarter. The size, thickness, and weight would all be wrong, and the design might not fully fit on the planchet. Such errors are extremely rare in modern coinage because of advanced sorting and quality control systems. That rarity is exactly what makes them so valuable. Even more astonishing would be a 2010 D dime struck on a silver planchet. Officially, silver was removed from U.S. dimes decades earlier, but silver planchets can still exist in mint facilities for special issues, testing, or commemorative programs. If a silver planchet somehow found its way into a batch of dime blanks and was struck with a 2010 dime die, the result would be a modern silver dime that should not exist. The discovery of such a coin would shock the numismatic world. The combination of a modern date, a Denver Mint mark, and an unexpected silver composition could easily push the value into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Another category of errors that can dramatically increase value is the double strike. A double-struck dime occurs when a coin is struck more than once by the dies. This can happen if the coin fails to eject properly after the first strike and is struck again. The second strike might be slightly offset or rotated, creating overlapping images, doubled lettering, or distorted portraits. In modern coinage, clear and dramatic double strikes are quite rare, especially those that are not heavily damaged or flattened by machinery afterward. A clean, bold double strike on a 2010 D dime, especially one that is visually striking and well preserved, could be worth an extraordinary amount. Closely related to double strikes are multiple strike errors. In these cases, a coin might be struck 3 or more times, sometimes while moving around inside the press chamber. The resulting coin can look chaotic, with repeated impressions of the design layered on top of one another. These errors are highly prized because each one is essentially unique. No two multiple strike errors look exactly the same. When such an error occurs on a modern coin like a 2010 dime and escapes into circulation, it becomes a once-in-a-generation discovery. Off-center strikes are another important factor. An off-center strike happens when the planchet is not properly positioned between the dies at the moment of striking. This causes part of the design to miss the planchet entirely, leaving a blank area. Minor off-center errors are relatively common and usually not very valuable. However, extreme off-center strikes that still show the full date and mint mark are much rarer. A 2010 D dime with a dramatic off-center strike that clearly displays the date and D mint mark would immediately attract serious collector interest. One of the most fascinating and valuable types of errors involves double dies. Unlike double strikes, double dies occur during the creation of the die itself. If the die receives multiple impressions that are slightly misaligned, every coin struck from that die will show doubling in the same places. True double die errors are highly collectible because they represent a mistake at the very heart of the minting process. In modern coinage, double dies are much rarer than they were in earlier decades because of improved technology. This rarity makes a strong double die on a 2010 D dime an extraordinary find. Doubling might appear on Roosevelt's profile, on the date, on the word Liberty, or on other design elements. When the doubling is bold and easily visible without magnification, collectors become especially excited. If only a small number of coins were struck before the error was detected and corrected, surviving examples could be incredibly rare. A top-condition double die 2010 D dime could be worth a life-changing amount of money. Mint mark errors themselves play a crucial role in the potential value of a 2010 D dime. The D mint mark indicates production at the Denver Mint, and in modern coinage, mint marks are integrated into the die rather than being punched in by hand. This means mint mark errors are less common, but not impossible. A misplaced mint mark, a filled or distorted mint mark, or even a doubled mint mark could add significant value. A missing mint mark on a coin that should have one, or an extra mint mark that should not be there, would be extremely unusual and worthy of intense scrutiny. Another category of errors that can contribute to extreme value is die damage. Dies are made of hardened steel and can develop cracks over time. Small die cracks are common and usually add little value. However, large die breaks, retained cuds, or massive cracks that dramatically alter the appearance of the coin are much rarer. A cud occurs when a piece of the die breaks off completely, leaving a raised, blob-like area on the coin where part of the design is missing. Retained cuds, where the broken piece remains partially attached, are especially fascinating because they show the die in a transitional state of failure. Modern coins with large, dramatic cuds are scarce because dies are typically replaced quickly when damage is detected. If a damaged die continues to strike coins for any length of time, the number of error coins produced is usually very small. A 2010 D dime with a major cud or die break, especially one that affects important design elements, could be a standout rarity. Strike-through errors are another possibility. These occur when a foreign object, such as grease, metal shavings, or debris, comes between the die and the planchet during striking. The object prevents part of the design from being fully impressed, leaving an unusual depression or distorted area. Some strike-through errors are subtle, while others are dramatic and visually compelling. A clear, unusual strike-through error on a 2010 D dime could be highly collectible, especially if the nature of the obstruction can be identified. Clipped planchets also deserve attention. A clipped planchet error happens when the blank is improperly punched from the metal strip, resulting in a missing portion of the coin. Curved clips, straight clips, and irregular clips all exist, and their value depends on size, shape, and overall eye appeal. Large, dramatic clips that do not affect the date and mint mark are more desirable. A 2010 D dime with a major clip error in excellent condition could be worth far more than face value, and in rare cases, when combined with other errors, could reach astonishing prices. Condition is one of the most critical factors in explaining how a modern dime could be worth $875,000. Most 2010 dimes were heavily circulated and show wear, scratches, and marks from everyday use. However, a tiny fraction were preserved in pristine condition, either because they were set aside immediately or never entered circulation. When a major error coin is also in near perfect or flawless condition.